Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Joe Patrick on Football, where, as you can see, I'm joined by the one and only Mark Zinno. Mark, you have like a cult following now from the Monday press conferences. The people in the comments section love you.
Um, Never thought anybody in Atlanta would ever.
Man of the people.
I mean, the idea that one, I'm on Joe Patrick on Football makes me feel honored. Number two, I didn't know when we got to a spot where I all of a sudden became the harbinger and the bearer of honesty when it comes to the level of holding the Falcons accountable. But here we are. It has obviously been a belief storm of events that have led down this road.
Yeah.
And look, is it wrong if I just start out by saying I told you so? Can I start the show that way?
You're well within your rights. You're well within your rights. Is there
I mean,
what specifically did you tell us?
because look, when I was filming on Dukes and Bell last week, and I did that little internet thing, the little blog thing they do before the show, the morning warm up thing that they do online.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted a clip of it on my Instagram. It's at Mark Zinno, same as Twitter. And I try to tell people, like, manifestly, the problems with the Falcons started the day they decided to draft Michael Penix after signing Kirk Cousins. And it's not because Michael Penix was a bad player. Look, you and I both know this. And if Arthur Smith had stayed here, he was drafting Michael Penix.
Mm-hmm.
What he wasn't doing was signing Kirk Cousins and then doing that. He was drafting. Right. He was Arthur Smith was a huge Michael Penix fan.
He was.
What I fault the organization for is trying to do both and trying to outsmart the room and think they were getting ahead of the curve. It's the equivalent of, like, when it's 4th and inches, like not even a whole yard, like half a ball length, and you're in a shotgun 5 wide receiver set split formation. Like, no, just lean forward and get the damn first down. Like you're trying to be too cute. But it's funny because somebody on Twitter brought this back to me. I always knew this was the case, but I forgot that I had tweeted this, and somebody, said, "Hey, Zinno, you nailed it." And I don't ever go back and read previous Twitter. I have enough trouble reading current Twitter. But I wrote this like April 26th, which I think was like a day or two after the draft. And I said, objectively, here's the path of the Falcons, right? Here are the paths that this whole thing goes down. Cousins plays well for the next 2 or 3 years. They go to the playoffs. Penix sits 3 or 4 years. And now you made a poor decision to draft him because you wasted a first-round pick on a rookie contract and a quarterback that never saw the field, right? So that was one way. Cousins doesn't play well or gets injured. Penix plays. You made a poor decision in signing Cousins, right? Cousins is average, gets benched. Penix is average, can't play. Now you made 2 bad decisions. Like, from the beginning, I said the only way this works out is a very tight window where Cousins plays well for 2 to 3 years, retires or gets traded or whatever. Then Penix comes in, plays really, really well, and the team makes the playoffs for 7 or 8 straight years. I was like, that's a really hard ask.
Yeah.
And that's what I tweeted the night, a day after the draft, whatever it is, which is why I hated the way they did it. Like, I loved the Kirk Cousins signings at the time. All of us did. Don't play revisionist history, people. 90% of the city was on board with us signing Cousins, right? You could argue whether it should have been 3 years, 4 years. You could argue about the price, fine. But the idea of bringing an established quarterback here after a year of Mariota and a year of Ritter was what exactly everybody thought was the right move.
And guys like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, even Bijan Robinson, like, they needed that veteran leadership and somebody who was going to kind of get them on board, all sing from the same hymn sheet.
So everybody was on board with that. And then, people tried to massage the whole Penix thing like it's a smart idea. No, it wasn't. It never, it was just a small chance that it was going to work out. And again, when the Packers did it, they never had any intention of ever starting the guy. Right? Like, it was never, and when don't give me Rodgers. There's 2005. It's 20 years ago. It was a completely different league. Okay. So that doesn't even apply anymore. When the Packers did it with Love, they never had any intention of moving on from Aaron Rodgers at the time. It was just a safety net plan, which, again, everybody at the time was like, what the hell are you drafting him for? And even at that, guess what? Psst, Jordan Love ain't that good. Jordan Love isn't that good. So it hasn't exactly worked out for them. And then the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. Completely different scenario. Alex Smith was in the last year of his deal. They knew they were not re-signing him. And, oh, by the way, they were a playoff team 3 years in a row winning the division. That was not the Falcons. So you tried to be cute, and it blew up in your face because there was more opportunities for it to be bad than it was to be good.
It's funny that you bring up Mahomes. And by the way, it's also worth noting that, like, even in like the perfect scenario for the Falcons, I still think that it's a dicey
Yes.
situation where if Kirk Cousins is playing as well as he, theoretically should have or could have played, would have been awkward getting off of a quarterback that's on that level and then going to a guy who literally has not started for you
Right.
yet.
Especially
So
when you theoretically were making the playoffs 2 or 3 years in a row.
right,
So
right. But it's
I
funny that it's funny that you
right,
bring up Mahomes because Terry Fontenot kind of has a story in Mahomes going to the Chiefs where he was obviously in the Saints front office
right,
and they get gazumped by the Chiefs. The Chiefs trade up one pick in front of them where apparently the Saints were ready to take Mahomes, and maybe the Chiefs even taunted the Saints a little bit about that draft pick after they made it, knowing that the Saints wanted to draft Mahomes. And I wonder, just reflecting on that, whether Fontenot was just like so obsessed with that having happened to him in the past, and then coming into this situation where he feels like he has to go out and get his future
right.
quarterback, that he just was not going to let that situation pass up.
Well, and I don't believe it was Fontenot pushing the button here. I mean, obviously,
I agree. I
you know,
agree.
Arthur Blank said out loud. He said it out loud that they weren't going to be in a situation again like they were with Matt Ryan and not having a successor. So this was a decision at the ownership level to do this. Fontenot was the guy who helped choose the guy that they wanted, right? That I believe that he had a role in that decision, but it was mandated they were going to have some sort of plan after signing Kirk Cousins because we
Right.
knew at most he was a 3-year investment,
Right.
maybe 4 if you were get very lucky to get a 4th year out of him. So they knew that they were going to have to move on. They just tried to do it before they needed to do it, and it didn't work. And so now you're in this whole mess. And the biggest question of the whole mess really goes back to the thing is, can Penix play? Now, everyone is going to sit there and point to coaching. I will say this much. Again, you're not going to like, no one's going to like hearing this. You didn't lose the last 3 games because of coaching. You just flat out didn't. They weren't out coached. If you watch the games, they weren't out coached. There might have been some game management decisions that were questionable, but that happens in every football game. There's, 12, 13, 15, 16 games a week. There are 24 bad coaching decisions within the game, right? But that's not the reason you really lost those games. On the whole, I agree with the coaching that has been subpar. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
there's any debating that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the bigger problem here is that in reality, you have a glorified offensive assistant slash quarterback coach calling plays for you. And in reality, and I kind of hate to say this out loud because I genuinely like him. You got a glorified DB coach running your team,
Yeah.
and that's it's just that's the reality of it. I mean, it's I believe Ra is a good coach. I just don't think he's a very good head coach, and those are different responsibilities. They're completely different. And so when you're in this situation that the Falcons are in right now, the scramble is for the front offices. How the hell do we get out of this? I mean, we don't know as we sit here on Tuesday evening. And I can tell you this much. I verified this. Penix was supposed to fly out of Atlanta today to go get more tests done. And let's just give everybody the background here. So, and I understand, I was kind of ticked off in the press conference on Monday that Raheem wasn't really giving clear answers, but I
Same.
got a
Yeah.
little bit more clarification on it because
Okay.
I asked certain people and I got more clarification. Like, yes, the Falcons have their assessment. Okay. So what happens after an injury of this magnitude? Of course, the agent gets involved. So because the agent controls the player when these things happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the agent says, we're going to go get it from our guy. So that's going to take another day, another 24, 48 hours. And then even at that, the agent turns around and says, well, maybe we should get a second opinion after that. So this could be 2 or 3 days before they get all the opinions that they need. And then, oh, by the way, ultimately, surgery is up to the player, not the organization. So then Penix has to sit down with his team, his agent, his business manager, everybody else, and then tell the Falcons, hey, we're going to have surgery or we're going to try rehab and we're going to wait. Like the disaster of all disasters on top of this disaster, Joe, is imagine they try to go the route of rehab and then all of a sudden it gets to
Oof.
the middle of January and they go, okay, now we're having surgery,
Right.
right? Like they want to see if they, swelling goes down and everything else. They could, take some more tests and say, okay, maybe we got some ways we can work on this. And then you drag it out another 6 weeks and then you decide to have surgery in December, at the end of December, beginning of January. Now, he's definitively done for all of next year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's still, as bad as it is to say, there could be more disaster coming.
Yeah, and it's worrisome, especially when you look at the way that the kind of injury management has been dealt with on this team.
Oh,
Whether it's Storm Norton this year, who has the foot injury and then comes back, and I don't, I don't, I don't know what happened there, but he clearly, something. I don't know if again, I don't want to allude to the fact that he was being rushed back, but it sounds like he re-aggravated the injury at some point during the window to return to play, and so he's on the bench for the season. You look at Troy Anderson last year, where he does his knee in, what was it, week 6 at the time, and then they tried to get him back. They get him back on the field for a couple games, kind of toward the later part of the season before he goes down again, and now he's going to have been out for a full calendar year at this point. And so you worry about, will Michael Penix kind of be in the best hands possible? I certainly hope so, but I'm kind of on the pessimistic side of his return, and just generally, because generally speaking, that's how it's been for the Falcons with
well,
injuries this
and
year.
again, the Darnell Mooney thing.
The
I
Darnell Mooney thing's another one,
look, the Falcons PR doesn't handle the injury report or the injuries, right? So
of
I'll
course.
give them a little bit of. They have to deal with the issues with it, but man, dude, just broken collarbone. Here's the thing, and this is what I was saying. I was like, when you say something breaks, that in the minds of non-medical people, which is 90% of everybody, 95% of everybody, I have a definitive timeline of when a bone breaks and when it heals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Right.
I won't understand what was the reason to hide like soft tissue. Okay, let's Lamar Jackson like 2 or 3 years ago, had a hamstring injury or a knee injury that wasn't a break, and he ended up sitting out every week. We thought he was coming. He sat out soft tissue stuff. Okay, we can kind of understand that world, but a break kind of denotes okay, he's got a broken collarbone. He'll be back in 6 weeks. He's going to miss all the training camp. You know, it was just weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird way they do business. And, and I told him, I said, the problem is you guys have lost all benefit of the doubt when it comes to
Right.
injuries
Right.
because of the continual, even going back to Cousins last year. You've lost all benefit of the doubt with everybody. When you tell me there's an injury, I no longer will take you at face value that the injury is what you says it is, because you've shown me time and time again that the way you report this stuff is sketchy.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is I feel like now, since the tables have really turned on the Falcons season, especially in these last couple of weeks, I feel like Raheem is now starting to be more open about the injuries, and it's
Yeah.
like, is your position in, like, where you are kind of in the playoff race or the success of the season kind of dictating like how you are communicating, like what injuries are occurring, or how honest you basically want to be, how much you want to divulge
Yeah.
publicly? I think that just kind of rubs people the wrong way.
And I will say this much, and I think you noticed it too. I mean, even after previous losses, Rock comes in, he's still got a certain amount of energy to him.
Hmm.
Even if we didn't like the answers, he stood a little taller, and he was pretty defeated on Monday.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
could tell, like he just was carrying a lot of weight. I'm not asking anybody to feel bad for him. He's a professional head coach in the NFL. Like he's got one of 32 jobs in the world. So
Hmm.
I'm not asking anybody to shed a tear, but from being in there week after week and being around him enough, like that's the first time I've really ever seen him down spirit and downtrodden. And that ought to tell you where things are right now, and how low it's really sank for this team. And I know people think the season is over. And for all intents and purposes, it is, as far as the playoffs are concerned. And I'm definitively curious to see how they finish out,
Hmm.
right? Like definitively curious to see who's still playing hard, how this is going. Are guys still fighting, or are they just playing for jobs? Are they just playing for something on tape that they can get? And I've seen people make the argument about blowing the whole thing. Like you're not blowing it up. And here's the thing: you're not blowing it up. And Penix is your quarterback, whether it's in 2026 or 2027. This was the problem with this thing. There was no other off ramp, right? Like you committed to Penix as the next guy. And so even if you did have your top 10 pick, you weren't drafting a quarterback anyway, even if Penix doesn't play in 2026, because this is what you committed to.
Right.
And you, like I said, you made it such a small window to get through to be successful with this plan that it was doomed to fail. And, now you're in a scenario where it's like, oh, well, Cousins is supposed to play, and Penix was supposed to learn, and, we weren't going to draft in the top 10 the next couple of years. And I mean, this is an abject disaster
Yeah.
all
Oh
around.
yeah.
And
Clearly. And that's the abject disaster is what to me is kind of written all over Raheem Morris's demeanor when he comes into that press conference on Monday. Like he knows it, we know it, he knows we know it, we know he knows we know it. And it's just like one of those things.
I know you,
And
you know that I know you, and I know that
and
you know that I know that I know you.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like Raheem's superpower as a coach is that bringing
Energy.
that energy,
Right.
that positive energy, and even in the media, like I've always said, he's kind of like the antithesis of Arthur Smith in this sense, where it's like Arthur Smith rubbed people the wrong way in media, but there was a lot of substance to the things that he would often say, but it was hard for people to kind of grasp onto it because of whether it was the language he used or his just general demeanor. And
Mhm.
Raheem's kind of the opposite. Raheem is like very upbeat, energetic. People like it, especially if he has something fun, exciting to talk about. He's going to make the most of it. But ultimately, there's not a whole lot of like football substance there in what
No,
he
no,
says.
it's not. And speaking of which, well, since you brought his name up, let's talk about good old Arthur Smith for a second.
Okay.
Should I take my victory lap now? When you might have been on the island with me, I think you were,
Yeah.
but I died on
Yeah.
that island with the Atlanta Falcons.
You've been more vocal on it. We're both on it, but yeah,
I,
you're
the only person out there who definitively said he should not have been fired.
yeah.
He was the guy. He was a good coach, and he should have stayed here. And I would guarantee you that if he was still here with this current roster, they make the playoffs last year. When they go 6-3 with Kirk, even if they did take Kirk and did the Penix thing with Arthur Smith, I guarantee you they made the playoffs last year. They do not go on that 5-game slide, even with a banged up Kirk. There's just a different level of football knowledge, as you said, and the way you went about things. So that was, and it's funny because I remember telling people this in the beginning of the year when Penix started, because I genuinely believe Penix was going to be good. I still think he's got a chance to be good. We don't know what we have yet.
We don't know. Yeah.
We have a large. I mean, remember, he hasn't even played a full 17 games yet in this league.
Right.
So we don't 100% know what we have. We know the sample size doesn't really wow us at this point. But, the idea that Penix is good is when I was telling people, like, I think they may have found the guy. And you know me, I always tell you process over results. I hated the process of getting him because the litany of mistakes and the litany of bad decisions they made along the way to get to Michael Penix is laughable.
Mm-hmm.
It was laughable how many bad decisions and how many wrong decisions they made in a row. And they think they finally found their guy. Now, again, we're sitting in limbo trying to figure out if they had found their guy. But yeah, I will take a free lap on Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can agree that one of those bad decisions was that firing because he did more with less every year until the last year. Although even his last year, he was dealing with a quarterback situation where he knew midway through that season, if not earlier, that was not a tenable.
Do you remember when Marcus Mariota was playing and people were screaming for Ritter?
Yeah.
And,
oh yeah.
Arthur Smith told me face to face. And he told all of us in those scrums that he would hang out with us after the Monday press conference. The dude wasn't ready. They knew he wasn't ready. It got to a point once they knew that they really weren't going to make the playoffs and the math was so not in their favor. Last 4 games, let's give Ritter a shot. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's at least get something on tape. It's something we can work with. That was the only reason he played. Otherwise, if they were 500, somewhere remotely close to 500 with 4 games left, there's no way Desmond Ritter sees the field. They knew he wasn't good. Yeah. They flat out knew it, and Arthur Smith, but they had no other choice that year than to take a quarterback because they knew Mariota was not they couldn't go another year. Yeah. It was a 1-year deal. They knew they had to do it. And again, that was part of the raw deal that he got when he got bent over a barrel when the owner did what he did with Matt Ryan. I mean, I don't want to relitigate the whole thing. I'll take my victory lap.
But I mean that's part of the the decision making that has happened over the last course of so many years, and it kind of undermined what was happening in Arthur Smith's tenure at that point. And on the Desmond Ritter point, I want to say that I think a lot of people, maybe because Arthur later was fired and Terry Fontenot stayed, that the decision to do what I call the Ritter Gambit was like an Arthur Smith-driven decision. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I don't think it's the case that Arthur Smith was like against it. It was something that they did, it was a decision they came to in tandem, and it's not the best position to be in, but also you have to look at the timing of everything that was happening during those years and the quarterbacks that were available to them,
Yeah,
where
it was the
they
worst
really
quarterback
weren't.
draft in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, it
There
was the
wasn't a
worst
single
draft.
quarterback that came out of that draft that was worth a spit.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, but they had to do something. They had to try
Yeah.
and take a flyer and hope it worked out. So
And they went 7-10 that year with Ritter, and
Ritter,
ultimately exactly. And then
Desmond, he
the,
should have gotten a medal for going 7-10 with Desmond Ritter. Do you
yeah.
think his coaching staff with Desmond Ritter would ever go 7-10? How about no?
And Arthur Smith as a play caller of that team had a clear identity and could lean into certain aspects of that team. There was a game that they played against the Browns. I referenced this on a podcast several weeks ago, but there was a game they played against the Browns, and it was a slogfest. This was in 2022, in
Yeah.
like the
I think the game was
peak.
in Cleveland too, right?
No, it was in Atlanta. It was
Revenge?
in Atlanta. Yeah, yeah. But like they were struggling. They came out after halftime and ran the ball 13 straight times down the field, scored a touchdown, took control of the game from that point,
Yep.
and it was over. And it just has never felt like under Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson as the offensive play caller that there's been that thing, that aspect of the team that they could consistently rely upon when the chips are down, when things aren't kind of going well, that they could just kind of go back to that well. And that's what to me has been most frustrating with this Falcons team over the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
I mean, look, at best, the offensive play calling, the offensive scheme has been disjointed, right? They were able to take advantage of some lesser defensive opponents like Washington, right? And
Mm-hmm.
put together what looked like a really good game.
Yeah, and it
And
turns out Washington is
awful on defense. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so that's really what that boiled down to. But the coherence in the play calling isn't there, and what can you say? I mean, I don't have many conversations with Zach Robinson, and I don't, at this point, I don't see a reason to. To be perfectly honest with you, he's not going to illuminate me with anything that I can't see with my own two eyes. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I just say it like I know what I've looked at for the last, what are we talking about? 25 games now at this point in time. So the point simply is that, Robinson's in over his head. I think we know that. And regardless of what happens everywhere, I mean, I can definitively tell you he's not the OC next year, right?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think there is a small world where actually, brace yourself, Falcons fans, Raheem stays. I think the most likely scenario is Terry stays and Raheem goes. But
Can you
go
lay
ahead.
out the case for like why it would be that one
That
of them
Raheem
would stay?
stays,
That either one stays. Take
well,
your
look,
pick.
I'll lay out the case for Raheem right now. Okay, I mean, um, for Raheem staying, if you fire another coach and you're on 5 coaches in 11 years, I've been here in Atlanta 11 years. Mike Smith, Dan Quinn, Arthur Smith, Raheem, and then you go to somebody else, that's 5. So if you're firing a coach every 2 years, you're basically the New York Giants at this point. Despite having 4 Super Bowls, the Giants are a laughing stock and they can't get out of there. You're the Jets, you were the Browns. I mean, for any semblance of growth and continuity, which is important in the NFL. Stability is important as much as you in a world where players are nonstop moving everything. The idea that you can hold on to a coach longer than 3 or 4 years is pretty, important to do.
Yeah.
And the Giants even tried to do it with Daboll, right? Like they tried to give it another year to say, okay, let's see if we can hold this thing together, make something happen. And it just got to a point of diminishing returns and critical mass where they said he had to go. So, organizationally, philosophically, I support keeping the coach because you're trying to build something, especially when you haven't made the playoffs this long. Like hitting another reset button means you likely won't make the playoffs for 2 more years. Okay. Here's the other reason that I can unequivocally, and people will agree with me on this. In what world do you trust this ownership group and front office people to make the right decision? Like,
Yeah.
how much worse could it get with Raheem staying? Like, I mean, I guess theoretically somebody new could come in, but again, you have toxic groupthink at the top of this organization. you have an owner and 2 yes men who sit in the corner, 3 maybe, depending on if we add them all up, and never take a dissenting voice. They're afraid to do something different. They don't want anything new. They want to do what they do. Like, there is the vetting process for who they pick has proven to be a failure. So why uproot everything just to put a new guy in here? And I don't exactly know that this coaching cycle has a lot of like names that you trust. Everybody's screaming for McCarthy. Why? It's not that I think Mike McCarthy's a bad coach, but if there are going to be 4 or 5 other jobs open, why does Mike McCarthy want this one? Why would you want to take a job for a year where you have no quarterback?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
It's not an appealing job at this point. If Michael Penix was blowing up, right, and playing well, but they were still losing games, and you decided, hey, we need get a new offensive coordinator in here. Maybe there's a world, where if Mike McDaniel is officially let go, you could bring him back here and have him a la under the, Kyle Shanahan system, which is where Sean McVay came from, which is where Zach Robinson came from, which has got similar concepts still that he could work with, right? Maybe that's your OC. I wouldn't hate that if Raheem stayed and McDaniels is the OC. But again, like, I understand people want a pound of flesh and they want Raheem gone. Like, I understand the fans' point, and I'm not saying that point is necessarily wrong, but if you step back away from this emotionally for a minute and go, what are we really moving on to? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I mean, you're certainly not moving on to a proven commodity. The problem with the Falcons, okay, the problem with the Falcons is a culture problem. It is a culture problem at the highest levels. And, oh, by the way, like, the Falcons interviewed Mike Vrabel, okay? Now, Mike Vrabel never got offered the job. Forget for a second. Mike Vrabel, just look objectively at what you see here in New England. Mike Vrabel walked into New England. Granted, he had a lot of clout there because he played there. But he walked in there. 1, he has total control, okay? 2, he does things his way and answers to nobody. You really think that Mike Vrabel, if he was ever offered the job, well, why did Vrabel take the interview? Because you don't say no to a job you haven't been offered. That's like adult speak for everybody out there. Never say no to a job you haven't been offered. If someone wants to sit down with you and talk to you about a job, even if you don't need it, you sit down and talk about the job. You don't say no until somebody offers you the job. So obviously you go and interview, because when you're out of work also, like, you interview for jobs because that's what you do. Keep your name fresh in everybody's mind as a viable candidate. But even if you said, there's no way, I don't think there was a world where Mike Vrabel said yes to this. No. Because, oh, by the way.
Especially after Arthur Smith was the former coach.
Well, and that's, yeah. I mean, like, Arthur Smith was the former coach, and it would, hey, Art, how was your experience? Yeah, it kind of sucked. Everybody above me, like, doesn't listen to anything, and they want to do things their way. And, oh, by the way, didn't care that I went 7-10 with 2 of the worst quarterbacks in the last 15 years to take a snap in the NFL. Yeah, nobody cared about that. So, like, there's no way the culture is the issue. And if you want to bring somebody in here who's going to change the culture, the people picking won't allow you to. So what is the point to moving on? Like, at this point, like, objectively, if you want somebody fired just for the sake of change, I get it. I understand it, fans. But I'd love somebody in the comment section to tell me, what do you ultimately think somebody is going to change? Because the problem isn't really coaching. The problem is the culture. It is bad. And for a team that has had no identity since Mike Smith left, since he was fired, and Mike, at the time, it was just like it had run its course. But that was the last time this organization had any identity whatsoever, was when Mike Smith was here. Dan Quinn had a little bit of an identity. They got a quick spurt, one good draft class and everything else, and boom, it all hit. But Fast and Physical and Brotherhood wore out pretty damn quick, didn't it? That wasn't an identity. So that wasn't that was his identity. It wasn't a culture thing room. Like, the good, successful teams have their culture fixed. The Falcons do not. And the problem is that the people who will pick the next guy to choose the culture, they will only pick the guy who gives the culture that they like, not anything else. So if you're going to fire the coach, be prepared for more of the same. It's the definition of insanity, Joe.
I know I talked to you about this on Monday when I was kind of looking into it, we talked about it on the show yesterday. It was kind of the main focus of the show was kind of addressing this culture issue, and I talked about what the Lions did when they had this ownership
Yep.
shakeup. They didn't just go out, and that owner didn't just go out and try to, get a consulting firm in, get the best top qualified coaches in, interview them, etc. She hired Chris Spielman, who knew the culture, knew that city, knew what the fans wanted out of a football team, and then started working from there to try to bring in the right personnel around them. And ultimately, they were laughed at for hiring Dan Campbell, laughed at, and maybe even more so, not just by the name, but obviously after what he said in that press conference. And now, when you
And
go
by the
back
way,
to
the
that press
first year, I
conference,
think they went like 3-13.
yeah,
First year of Dan Campbell.
yeah.
And
And
no
one thing, one of the things that Spielman said, and I think it's kind of, I think that this is very relevant for the Falcons because remember, like at that time, the Lions were the epitome of dysfunction
Yep.
and losing.
Laughing stock.
They were, absolutely a laughing stock in the NFL. And I remember one of the things I read about Spielman was that they wanted to make losing, a learning experience, obviously, but never to be afraid of it. And I just feel like that is exactly what this Falcons organization is. They are so afraid of losing that it actually brings more of it upon
They're
themselves.
afraid of their own shadow is the other part. They don't like criticism. They're afraid to be talked about in a negative light, and they keep walking themselves into it. I will give you one name, and it would never happen. I don't think it would ever happen, but I will give you one name if you want to change the culture here. You're sitting down. You are sitting down. Is everybody ready?
I am.
Deion Sanders. The guy who already knows the organization. Now, let me finish before you knows the organization and changes culture everywhere he went. Changed it at Jackson State, changed it at Colorado, would change the culture. However, you know what we've realized about Deion Sanders? Psst, he's not that good of a coach. You see, like when you took away all his talent at Colorado, guess what?
Right.
Can't coach.
Right.
Now, somebody say there is talent here. Okay, there is. But that's the kind of guy that changes culture.
Yeah.
The city would lose their freaking mind if they ever did it. I mean, it would be.
That'd be wild.
I mean, and Michael Vick or Deion Sanders came back to Atlanta would make this city literally, be burned to the ground again. And so not in a bad way, but you know what I mean. And so, yeah, he's a guy who would change the culture. But I don't think Deion ever wants to get into the NFL. That's number one. Number two, again, I don't think he's actually a very good coach. But
I don't even think the Falcons need someone like Spielman to have Spielman's role. But the point of it is that Spielman was brought in to touch every aspect of the Lions organization. Yep. There was no place in the organization that he was not allowed to go. He had basically the ultimate access to everybody. And there isn't that. I feel like the Falcons need that level of shakeup, whether it's one person or maybe a group of people who know the city and this team, very well. But it's really about the structure at the very top.
But again, that's the guy that would change the culture that comes to mind. Like,
right.
I mean, what coordinator out there that you're going to hire is going to change the culture? I don't necessarily know the answer to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, so because this is typical Falcons, right? We go from Mike Smith, older head coach, let's go younger, and they go brand new, and they get defensive Dan Quinn. Oh, when we fire that guy, well, we can't go defensive now, so now we have to go offensive. And we had 2 first-time head coaches the last 2, so that didn't work. So the third time we got to go, experienced head coach or experienced coach, and they went with Raheem because he knew the organization, was a head coach once before. So what direction do you go next?
Yeah.
You go offensive and you go retread, or do you go brand new? Like, what coordinator out there do you want to get?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know. It's not like a very high level coaching cycle right now where all these guys are available.
Yeah. So, maybe there's a Dan Campbell out there. I just feel like they need, I feel like, and I don't have an actual answer to my own kind of proposal here, but I just have this feeling like us Mike Smith, like Mike Smith was not a prestigious name when he was hired by the Falcons to be their head coach, but he was exactly what that team needed at the time.
Want me to give you one more name?
Sure. Yeah, let's hear it.
Todd Monken. Georgia, offensive guy, comes from a stable organization. That's the other name that I think might get people excited. But
Mhm.
again, first time head coach, right? So
Right.
do we trust that he knows how to run an NFL organization? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's been at a high level in other NFL organizations before, but obviously the Georgia ties would have the fan base. Woo-hoo! So, but I think the most likely scenario, believe it or not, is that Terry stays and Raheem goes.
So this is where I'll hit back. I just feel like with the trade that was made last year to trade away the first round pick, just from an optics standpoint, that feels to me like a
Wow.
non-starter going into the offseason because it's going to be the only thing that he's going to have to defend that
Well,
over
you
and over
stuck your
again.
foot in your mouth by saying we don't plan on drafting in the top 10. What a stupid thing to say. Like, what
Yeah.
a dumb thing to say. Like, I mean, the braggadociousness from a team that had been drafting in the top 10 for 7 straight years. Like, I mean, hey, man, I give you credit for having a set of huevos to throw it out there. But, dude, if you're going to talk that kind of yang, you better back it up. Like,
Hmm.
you didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the worst part of it is that you got to live with that. You told us you don't plan on drafting in the top 10 again. Oh, well, oops. Oops. I mean, so, but in reality, the roster, which he helped construct, theoretically, with the help of Arthur Smith, two best players from Arthur Smith. Anyway, but with that roster that he constructed, there's an argument to say that he's I don't know many GMs who keep their job after 5 years without making the playoffs, but I think the owner's loyalty to people will keep him here, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Number one. Number two, guys, does it really matter who the GM is? Come on. Like, let's be real about this. I said it the day that Arthur Smith was fired, and they told us that. Respectfully, Terry Fontenot. I mean, I'm sure he, picks players and everything else, but like, he doesn't do it. He's a personnel guy for all intents and purposes.
Hmm.
Everything else gets run through the upper ring, right? Like, do we really believe that he's autonomously operating as the GM and just once a week goes into the owner's office and gives an update of what's going on? Or do we believe that, this stuff only rolls downhill? I mean, I've felt for a while now that he's a GM in title only. I think we've known that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope we learn more about some of the the details of the inner workings of this because it feels like it's been a mystery with regards to Terry Fontenot's status, basically, like what responsibilities he does have and what he doesn't. As you can see, Mark got kicked out of the party there. I wonder if hopefully we aren't being watched as we're recording this, and they had to get Mark's internet connection. But we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Joe Patrick on Football. You can watch us on 929 The Game's YouTube channel. If you're doing that right now, please click like so we know you're a real human person that is watching this, and you'll get more Falcons content for you. Let's see.
Back. I
He's
don't know what
back.
happened.
He's back. I was actually just gonna sign off. I felt like that was
Oh,
that was
come
a
on.
sign for us to go. But did you have
Oh,
anything else you wanted to
well,
say?
did you hear what I said? What was the last thing you heard?
Yeah, about Terry Fontenot and just kind
Yeah.
of yeah.
Respectfully, he's a GM who he's got his nuts clipped. And do we really believe that?
Well, it goes back to the culture thing. It's like
Yeah.
is the next GM gonna have to deal with those same kinds of
I mean, so
parameters?
I know people want change, but it's like, I mean, what are we changing to? Like,
Right.
I'll say this now because I'll say it in the room. If they make a change at head coach or GM, the only question to ask the owner when he's standing there, why should anybody believe you?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you. Like, if you ever stop to think that you are the problem, it's not the previous 4 head coaches who have all tried here and failed. It's you. And that's just the reality of it. I don't think there's enough data points to back that up than anything else. And the triumvirate that sits up there and runs things is the problem. And so I'm not necessarily advocating to keep these guys, but I'm also like, I don't believe that change necessarily fixes everything.
Yeah. I think a lot of Falcons fans are feeling the same way. That's why it's kind of such a pessimistic time right now, is because there's just not a lot of hope that it's going to be any better this next go around. So
sorry, I dropped out.
No, you're all good. You're all good. We'll leave it there. I was just.
I wasn't being. I thought you were just smiling at me like the whole way, like, "Hey, good job, bro." And so you weren't moving. I'm like, and I'm just going, and I'm like, halfway, I keep like asking, I'm like, "What do you think?" And you're like, not moving. I'm like, "Okay, something happened."
I was just doing the perfunctory, click like on the on the thing and comment on the other thing. Yeah. So
comments. I'd love to see people's thoughts. I know you guys think I'm crazy for. Again, I'm not advocating keeping them, but I also would like somebody to detail a plan for me of just give me 3 head coaches. It's funny because somebody put that on Twitter like a couple of weeks ago. I think I showed it to you. When someone's like, who would you want to be the next 3 coaches of the Falcons? And I said Joe Brady, Lane Kiffin, and of course Arthur Smith.
Smith. A lot would have to change in order for that to happen.
Oh my God! Imagine. We need to be a for sale sign out Flowery Branch first before our brought back here. But I guess Joe Brady would be a guy that'd be interested in. Yeah. But he's also a guy who's never been a head coach before.
The thing I said yesterday is like I just want someone. It's not going to be the most like appealing job, just in terms of the headwinds that you're going to face when you come in here. But whoever it is, I want that. In some ways, it's like a litmus test where it's like I want someone who is going to embrace that challenge. Who's going to say like I want to be this team's head coach. So, but I'm looking forward to turning this around, and certainly they have to present those ideas on how they're going to do that. Yeah,
and also like for everybody screaming at McCarthy, like, you think McCarthy's stupid? Do you think objective? I mean, I know he wants to be a coach again, but if there are 5 or 6 openings that are going to come up like there are every year, is this the one he wants to choose above all else? I don't know the answer to that. I don't necessarily know it's yes.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and I'll just finish up my little perfunctory thing. If you listen to us on podcasts, just search Joe Patrick on Football wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll pop up. And
clever name, by the way.
Follow us from there. What's that?
Clever name for the show.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, it passes legal, so that's really the main thing.
Oh, you had legal problems? There were lawyers?
I just joke that's I don't think we're allowed to use like any like Falcons branding or anything, even though it's clearly a Falcon show. So it's just me talking football with you sometimes. You're our first return guest. So
woo! So look at that. I mean, boy, you're a glutton for punishment, and I think your audience probably. I can't. My favorite part is, as you said,
I can't wait to check the comments after this one.
Yeah, the Monday. Make sure you send me a link. I'll tweet it out. The Monday tweets that I get. Go get him, Zinno. Go get him. Go get him.
I know.
I'm not going to hit the man. Like, we're not going to fight. Like,
there's people like typing in the Falcons comments like before the press conference even starts. It's just like the waiting room or whatever. Like, Zinno's going to get him today.
How did I end up here? Oh well. All right, good stuff, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.